Hello, everyone. My name is Robert J., and I'm here to talk about my near death experience. Now, my near death experience really starts at the beginning of, pretty much of my childhood. I had a very traumatic childhood growing up. I was a child of very young parents, and in essence, was kind of on my own from the age of 3 on. And I was raised by my sister, and my parents were working. And I grew up in a very difficult situation. I had very young parents. My father was a bit aggressive. And so that instilled a lot of fear into my childhood. While at the same time, I experienced a few very traumatic experiences growing up. I started having panic attacks at the age of 7. I had many panic attacks after that. And then there was a tragedy that I ended up experiencing my crime scene of my grandparents. And this was a few days after the crime had occurred. But I was 9 years old, 10 years old when that happened. And that instilled in me this very, very innate fear of mortality and death. And so my entire childhood, I was trying to, in essence, escape the reality that was that around me. And so it was difficult. It was very difficult. And one of the things I tried to do to escape that reality when I was about 15, 16 years old, I had met a young lady who happened to be married and happened to have a child already. And I, in essence, tried to escape my family situation. And I ended up getting this young lady pregnant, and it didn't work out. She had twins. She was married. There was a lot of legal issues that had come about because of this whole situation. And so I ended up having to sign my rights off to my children, while at the same time, I really, really wanted to be a father to them, but I didn't even know how to be a father. I didn't even know how to take care of myself, much less raise children. So this became a huge weight on my heart. So now I have this panic disorder. I have children that I'm unable to raise and be around. And I want to love those kids so much that I have this wonderful idea that I'm going to move out to Hollywood, California, and I'm going to be the biggest star there ever was. And I'm going to, buy a big house in Malibu. I'm going to invite my kids out, and they're going to go, whoa, he wasn't there in the beginning, but what a great dad this guy is now. And of course, God is laughing at me the whole time. He's well aware that he has other plans in store for me. So I have this anxiety and these panic disorders, this panic disorder all the way up until I'm about 25 years old. And when I'm 25 years old, I read this article talking about panic disorder and how to heal it. And I was actually able to heal my panic. And let's put heal in quotes there, because I still had this underlying stress. Basically, I'd learned to suppress my anxiety opposed to curing it or healing it or addressing all the issues that I had from growing up almost abandoned as a child, and while at the same time abandoning my children. I didn't heal anything. What I learned was to suppress my anxiety, and that was great. It was wonderful. I was able to go on adventures and, move out to Hollywood, and I'm doing all these, I'm in the background, or I'm driving on shows and standing in for actors, and I'm communicating with these famous people, and it's this wonderful, wonderful experience. And I think that I'm on the right path to what it is that I'm seeking, which is the love of my children. And so I'm out in Hollywood and 39 years old, and the stress and the weight of not accomplishing what I went out to accomplish was really, I think, weighing on my heart. Now, I didn't even notice this because I was so good at suppressing my anxiety that I had no idea that this was really building up to a very, very, dramatic moment in my life. And that's where my near-death experience happens. It's March 18th, 2016, and it's been a while. And I am on my computer and just doing research. I was bored doing research. It was probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I think I had a call the next day to be on set in the late evening. So I was staying up late. And I have this onset feeling that I need to meditate. I need to take a breath. I was on the computer. I'd been on the computer for a few hours. And so I stand up to meditate. And because the way I would meditate, I would basically walk around, and I would think about all the things I've learned, or I think about my life, and I would just take time to pause. Well, I had asked this question to God about my life, and I simply just asked why when I stood up. Now, why I asked what was going on in my mind at the time, I can't tell you. But what happens is instantly I go blind, and that freaks me out. And I've fainted before. I've passed out before. I've been a very active human being in my entire life, so I've had many instances where I've become lightheaded and things like that. This was not like that. This was me standing up from whatever situation I was in and going completely blind, everything black. Now I'm in the complete blackness, I would say, of God's soul, you know. So I'm sitting here immediately out of instinct. I go to my knees. I fall to my knees and I hear a voice. And the voice says, "You're dying." Now, while this voice is going on, my heart rate jumps up. I probably have an average heart rate at that time of maybe 76, 77 beats a minute. This was easily 600, 650 beats a minute. Under no circumstance was it going to be possible to survive this. And the voice says, "You're dying." And so I am on the ground. I'm on my face basically at this point, and my heart is racing. And I think, you know, why is this happening? And so as soon as my heart stops, and my heart stops in the middle of this whole situation, it goes from 70 to 600 to zero, all in maybe a matter of 20, 30 seconds. As soon as it goes to zero, I see the light of God. Now, the light of God appeared to me in the most miraculous and beautiful way that you could possibly imagine. It was much like a diamond with many faces. I keep some of it to myself, exactly what it looks like, you know, the illumination. I'm not trying to give it all away, but what I realized was that Christ can come in all forms, in all faces. In that moment, I realized that we all exist within the light of God. And it was amazing. And my heart had shaken so hard that, in essence, I feel like, you know, we're like this star, and our reflection hits this wall, and we live in this reflection. And all our memories from the past are the heartstrings that hold us in our emotions and the way that we perceive our life to be. And mine was very mixed up, and it was very misconstrued, because I had judgments on my family. I had judgments on people. I had judgments on the world, the way that it was run. I had judgments in the fact that I was in Hollywood and I wasn't performing well and I wasn't achieving the goals that I wanted to achieve. And so I realized that all these memories were being shaken out of me. All the stress that I had held on my entire life was being shaken off of me. Everything that I believed was some sort of punishment for existing in this world, I was realizing in an instant that every single moment that we ever grow through is a gift from God. And in the moment that the light of God shines in front of my face, I hear the voice, and the voice says, "God is love, grace, and mercy." And immediately it resonated with me. I started realizing what it was that I was missing in my life. And in that moment, the voice says, "Now I want you to go home, and I want you to tell your family, and then I want you to tell the world." Now, instantly, I realized what I had done. I had ran from my family thinking that somehow that was the answer, not realizing that all that they ever wanted, my children ever wanted, was to know that that guy out there loved them. And so immediately, in 24 hours of that, I'm emailing my kids and I'm saying, "Hey, there's a guy out there out in Hollywood who's coming home to you, even though they're 21 years old at this point." But believe it or not, it's never too late. They were so excited. My daughter was super happy. She was like, "Holy cow, we're kindred spirits. Let's meet up. We're going to have an amazing time." And we do. My son was like, "I don't think so. Don't bother. I don't care. We'll see," you know. And I came home within 2 weeks. I met my daughter. She went back and she told my son that I was a good guy and that I was, you know, worth giving a shot. And since then, both of us, my son and I, talk every day. My daughter, I talk to her like once every 3 or 4 days because she's out in another state, doing her own thing. But we've had the greatest relationship ever since. And not only with my children, but with my family, with my parents. I had to forgive everyone. And to the point where I realized that forgiveness is absolutely not necessary. If I was judging my father for the way he raised me, I was judging his mother and father for the way that they raised him. And if I'm judging them, I'm judging my great grandparents or their parents. And we can do this all the way back to the beginning of time and realize that, whoa, this is in essence just a story. All our lives are in essence one big movie that we're sharing together. And once we realize or recognize in the stories and in the gifts that are given to us in our culture and in our world, we realize that everybody has this gift. I think of, I mentioned it a lot in my channel, but, I think about Stephen King, and I think about all the horrors and all the stories that he tells, and what a gift trauma can be to us whenever we're able to put that story back out. And I started embracing everything that ever happened to me, and not only embraced it or accept it, I'm so grateful for being an independent 3-year-old child that got pulled over by the cops when I was on my bike, because I used to sneak out all the time, and I got pulled over by the cops when I was 3 years old. I love the traumatic experiences that I've had now, because I can put that into a creative way. I love to paint. I created an album. It's called, Melotrauma on iTunes, from pseudonym Sons of the Sim, because in essence, I look at it like it's a simulation. Reality is very much like a simulation. I got this, my carrot top moment. I got a prop here, and it's like a diamond. And all of reality, all of our faces are on a face of this diamond, and it gets pushed out. And God exists within the center of that diamond. And as we look at all the details of our reality, and we look at the details and the difficulties that exist within our past, we become jagged. It becomes a zigzag. It becomes virtually impossible to look right back into your soul and see God sitting in the center of it. But when you start to embrace that past, and you see all those zigzags as gifts, as fodder for stories to tell or songs to sing, menus to create food, all of our past, we can have a grandmother that was so difficult, but she made the greatest food, and she had to raise us. And because of that, she was bitter, but she taught you how to make tacos, and now you know how to make these great tacos, and you know how to tell the story of your grandmother, of who she really was, and not the stress that she was under by, let's say, having to raise a child. There's so much of our past that we look back and we wish that we could wish it away. And God is just asking within us to embrace our past, to understand that all of this is infinite. You are an infinite soul. This is infinite light. We divide it a billion, quadrillion different ways, but that doesn't stop it from being God, the knowledge of all things, and the Son, the light of God, of which we manifest all the material that we do. It's getting caught up in materialism, in the productions that the stories that people are telling us. We tend to want to utilize the material in those stories to make our lives good, but that's not where it's good. Everybody will tell you, especially on channels like this, that it's not about the stuff. It's never going to be about the material. You're not taking that with you. What you're taking with you is the soul, the acceptance of your story, and the love of your life that you had in the past. And that's very important to hold on to that. And because of that, I always try to get people to get into being creative, start to paint. There's so many ways of telling our story. I had an aortic aneurysm. That was medically what happened to me. But to me, it's just illumination. It's to understand that God is here. God is always protecting us. And under no circumstance can God check out and take a coffee break. It's something that exists within us. Again, something I like to say is that when God reveals himself, he reveals himself from the inside. There was never this outside. This is all a play, whether it's Francis Bacon or William Shakespeare, it doesn't matter. All the world is a stage. It's a matter of embracing the story that we've been given in order to let it go and to be grateful and thankful. I talk about, heaven on earth, and this is very much for me, heaven on earth. How is it heaven on earth for me? And it's hell for a lot of other people. It's to understand that the good and the bad versions of us that exist all around me or around us all have a perfect version deep in the center of us. If we accept that perfect version of everyone and understand that they're all playing a character, we can fall in love with the reality that this is infinite. This is a play. This is a story to tell. And when we say, oh, I don't like my story, I don't want to tell a story, that's the story you're telling. The 1% isn't the people that want to control people. The 1% tends to be the people that just want to live their life and tell their story. And so all I can say is that when you embrace the past, when you embrace all the difficult situations that have been handed to you, and you start looking at it in a way that can allow you to give back. The more traumas that people go through, the more people you can help, the more experience you have in difficult situations, the more ways you have of expressing yourself to people all around the world. I don't look at it as a death. To me, it was the birth of Christ. This is the way I look at it. It's very much an illumination. And I was fraught with the fear of death. It was instilled in me as a very young child. And then I had the experience with my grandparents, and that whole year was a nightmare. And then always feeling like death was on my shoulders, was just breathing down my neck. And so I had this anxiety. And then when I learned to suppress that anxiety, I thought I had conquered the world, while at the same time I'm suppressing. I'm not expressing myself. I'm not creating art. I'm not making songs. I'm just trying to live my life and hope that somehow a director looks at me and goes, "Hey, I want you in my next movie." And when that didn't happen, all of a sudden the world collapsed on me. And listen, there's a ton of people that are waking up in this world. Channels like this are such a great gift, because we can actually see that people know that God is real, and they're telling you to embrace that and to accept, that aspect of reality. But we also see that it breaks up a lot of relationships. And we also see that a lot of people have a difficulty when waking up, because there's a million ways to wake up. You can go, "Hey, do you know there's something bad in the water? And, there's bad products out there. And there's this that causes cancer and this that causes whatever." There's a lot of things out there that can flip your reality when you realize that, a lot of this is staged. A lot of these things are intentional. And you start to embrace that and you start to share it. Not everybody in relationships, let's say, takes those types of things very well. And so even in my relationship, when I woke up, we had a stress on our relationship because I knew God was real. I saw the sun. I heard the voice of God. I was given this gift of illumination. Now, please, I said to my wife, get on board. This is all good. But she still lived in the real world. She still lived in stress. She still had to go to work every day and accept the fact that she didn't see the world the way that I saw it. And so what I would ask for people that are, have these near-death experiences, or people that are waking up to the oddities of reality, to wake up with love, patience, kindness. Allow your information to be given with a grain of salt. Understand that not everybody is here to wake up. There are people that are dead set on not waking up in this lifetime. And that's the gift of this reality. Just because someone that you are really close to isn't on board with God or with waking up doesn't mean the perfect version of them doesn't exist within you. So I always say, don't leave anybody out of heaven. Do not take the chance and start judging the people that are putting themselves in front of you. Everybody is on their path. Everybody is going through their own journey. Some people, it looks very chaotic. Some people, it looks organized. Some people, it looks like they've been given a blessing and they have nothing wrong with them. And we don't know what's going on with everybody. But what I can say is, if you love everyone for the reality, that faith that might exist within you also exists buried deep within them, it's a lot better world to traverse. It allows you to see that everybody is in this play and they're all playing their parts absolutely perfectly. And when you accept that, I think it's easier to accept the journey that you've been on, and it's easier to give the love of God from within. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my journey. And I hope you guys all have an amazing, blessed day.